everybody, welcome back and happy Thursday. I am so excited that you decided to join us today for our video. Today for morning meeting, we are going to talk about one thing that we or you just really look forward to once the quarantine is over. So it could be going back to school. I'm really excited about going back to school. One thing that you could look forward to is going out to a restaurant with your family, or having a play date with your best friend, or going to the pool. That's another thing that I'm really looking forward to once the quarantine is over, is going to the pool. So it's important to look ahead and be excited about the future once things are safe enough to do so. So I would love to hear one thing that you are excited to do once the quarantine is over. You can leave me a comment down below. You can text it to me on Remind. Lots of you are texting me things for Teacher Appreciation Week, and I just really appreciate that. Even from afar, we still love each other. So thanks for all of the notes and the virtual hugs and the virtual gifts and all the videos that you've sent me. It just means a lot to me that even though we are not in school, Teacher Appreciation Week is still happening. So thanks. Today we are going to read chapter 4 of Flat Stanley. There's 5 chapters, so we're going to finish it tomorrow. Yesterday we read about how Flat Stanley, Arthur, turned Stanley into a kite. So today's chapter is titled The Museum Thieves. The Museum Thieves. And this is the picture. I'll show it to you before. Can you see it? I'll show it to you before I read it. All right. Mr. and Mrs. O.J. Dart lived in the apartment above the lamb chops. Mr. Dart was an important man, the director of the famous Museum of Art downtown in the city. Stanley Lambchop had noticed in the elevator that Mr. Dart, who was ordinarily a cheerful man, had become quite gloomy, but he had no idea what the reason was. And then at breakfast one morning, he heard Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop talking about Mr. Dart. "I see," said Mr. Lambchop, reading the paper over his coffee cup. "That's still another painting that has been stolen from the famous museum. It says here that Mr. O.J. Dart, the director, is at his wit's end." "Oh dear, are the police no help?" Mrs. Lambchop asked. "It seems not," said Mr. Lambchop. "Listen to what the chief of police told the newspaper. We suspect a gang of sneaky thieves. These are the worst kind. They work by sneakery, which makes them very difficult to catch. However, my men and I will keep trying. Meanwhile, I hope people will buy tickets for the policeman's ball and not park their cars where signs say they don't." I think this book is so funny. The next morning, Stanley Lambchop heard Mr. Dart talking to his wife in the elevator. "These sneaky thieves work at night," Mr. Dart said. "It's very hard for our guards to stay awake when they have been on duty all day. And the famous museum is so big, we cannot guard every picture at the same time. I fear it is hopeless, hopeless, hopeless." Suddenly, as if a light bulb had lit up in the air above his head, giving out little shooting lines of excitement, Stanley Lambchop had an idea. He told it to Mr. Dart. "Stanley," Mr. Dart said, "if your mother will give her permission, I will put you and your plan to work this very night." Mrs. Lambchop gave her permission. "But you will have to take a long nap this afternoon," she said. "I won't have you up till all hours unless you do." I wonder what the plan is. That evening, after a long nap, Stanley went with Mr. Dart to the famous museum. Mr. Dart took him to the main hall where the biggest and most important paintings were hung. He pointed to a huge painting that showed a bearded man wearing a floppy velvet hat playing a violin for a lady who lay on a couch. There was a half-man, half-horse person standing behind them, and 3 fat children with wings were flying around above. That, Mr. Dart explained, was the most expensive painting in the world. That's Mr. Dart and that's Stanley, and there's the most expensive painting in the world. There was an empty picture frame on the opposite wall. We shall hear more about that later on. Mr. Dart took Stanley into his office and said, "It is time for you to put on a disguise." "I already thought of that," Stanley Lambchop said, "and I brought one. My cowboy suit. It has a red bandana that I can tie over my face. Nobody will recognize me in a million years." "No," Mr. Dart said. "You will have to wear the disguise I have chosen." From a closet, he took a white dress. He's going to make Stanley wear a dress. With a blue sash, a pair of shiny little pointed shoes, a white straw hat with a blue band that matched the sash, and a wig and a stick. The wig was made of blonde hair, long and done in ringlets. That means like circle curly hair. The stick was curved at the top, and it too had a little blue ribbon on it. In this shepherdess disguise," Mr. Dart said, "you will look like a painting that belongs in the main hall. We do not have cowboy pictures in the main hall." Stanley was so disgusted he could hardly speak. Why do you think Stanley was so disgusted with that outfit? "I will look like a girl. That's what I'll look like." There's nothing wrong with looking like a girl, right, guys? I wish I never had my idea, but he was a good sport. There you go, Stanley. So we put on the disguise. Back in the main hall, Mr. Dart helped Stanley climb up into the empty picture frame. Stanley was able to stay in place because Mr. Dart had cleverly put 4 small spikes in the wall, one for each hand and foot. The frame was a perfect fit. Against the wall, Stanley looked just like a picture. "Except for one thing," Mr. Dart said. "Shepherdesses are supposed to look happy. They smile at their sheep and at the sky. You look fierce, not happy, Stanley." Stanley tried hard to get a faraway look in his eyes and even smile a little bit. Oh, forgot to show you the picture. There's Stanley, looking like a shepherdess, and there's Mr. Dart telling him to smile. Mr. Dart stood back a few feet and stared at him for a moment. "Well," he said, "it may not be art, but I know what I like." He went off to make sure that certain other parts of Stanley's plan were taken care of, and Stanley was left alone. It was very dark in the main hall. A little bit of moonlight came through the windows, and Stanley could just make out the world's most expensive painting on the opposite wall. He felt as though the bearded man with the violin and the lady on the couch and the half-horse person and the winged children were all waiting, as he was, for something to happen. Time passed and he got tireder and tireder. Anyone would be tired this late at night, especially if he had to stand in a picture frame balancing on little spikes. Maybe they won't come, Stanley thought. Maybe the sneaky thieves won't come at all. You think the sneaky thieves are going to come? The moon went behind a cloud, and then the main hall was pitch dark. It seemed to get quieter, too, with the darkness. There was absolutely no sound at all. Stanley felt the hair on the back of his neck prickle beneath the golden curls of the wig. Creak! The creaking sound came from right out in the middle of the main hall, and even as he heard it, Stanley saw in the same place a tiny yellow glow of light. The creaking came again, and the glow got bigger. A trap door had opened in the floor, and 2 men came up through it in the hall. Stanley understood everything all at once. These must be the sneaky thieves. They had a secret trapdoor entrance into the museum from outside. That was why they had never been caught. There they are with their trapdoor. And now, tonight, they were back to steal the most expensive painting in the world. He held very still in his picture frame and listened to the sneaky thieves. "This is it, Max," said the first one. "This is where we art robbers pull a sensational job whilst the civilized community sleeps." Right, Luther, said the other man. In all this great city, there is no one to suspect us. Ha ha, thought Stanley Lambchop. That's what you think. The sneaky thieves put down their lantern and took the world's most expensive painting off the wall. What would we do to anyone who tried to capture us, Max? The first man asked. That was enough to frighten Stanley, and he was even more frightened when Luther came over and stared at him. Oh. This sheep girl, Luther asked. I thought sheep girls were supposed to smile, Max. This one looks scared. Just in time, Stanley managed to get a faraway look in his eyes again and to smile, sort of. You're crazy, Luther, Max said. She is smiling. What a pretty little thing she is, too. That made Stanley furious. He waited until the sneak thieves had turned back to the world's most expensive painting, and then he shouted in his loudest, most terrifying voice, Police! Police! Mr. Dart, the sneaky thieves are here! The sneaky thieves looked at each other. Max, said the first one very quietly. I think I heard the sheep girl yell. I think I did too, said Max in a quivery voice. Oh boy, yelling pictures. We both need a rest. Oh, I forgot to show you the picture. There you go. There's Stanley yelling at the thieves. And they just thought they were crazy. You'll get rest, all right, shouted Mr. Dart, rushing in with the chief of police and lots of guards and policemen behind him. You'll get arrested. That's what. Ha, ha, ha. The sneak thieves were too mixed up by Mr. Dart's joke and too frightened by the policemen to put up a fight. Before they knew it, they had been handcuffed and led away to jail. The next morning in the office of the chief of police, Mr. Stanley Lambchop got a medal. Stanley Lambchop got a medal. The day after that, his picture was in all the newspapers. He saved the day. Good job, Stanley. Oh, that's the end of that chapter. Well, Stanley saved the day. Tomorrow we will read our last chapter of Flat Stanley. All right, bye guys. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great Thursday.